Some true stories were engineered to be repeated forever. Today, 33 weird true stories people keep repeating like facts. Like the Hitler diaries that fooled everyone until the ink gave it away. And Piltdown Man, the missing link built from an orangutan jaw. Stay for number 33 because the last one is absolutely insane. The Hitler diaries fraud that fooled major newsrooms. Editors paid fortunes, then learned the Hitler diaries were fake. In West Germany during the early 1980s, a scoop exploded overnight. Reporter Gerd Heidemann brought notebooks from dealer Konrad Kujau. Kujau claimed they survived a wartime plane crash in East Germany. Handwriting looked convincing, and stamps and seals added confidence. Experts later found modern ink, fresh paper, and sloppy anachronisms. Kujau had copied passages from books, then aged pages crudely. When police closed in, he confessed, and collectors felt humiliated. The scandal rewired fact-checking because fame can seduce grown-ups. 2. Piltdown Man fooled scientists with a fake missing link. Museums showcased Piltdown Man, and textbooks rewrote human origins. In 1912, amateur fossil hunter Charles Dawson dug in Sussex, England. He teamed with British Museum scientist Arthur Smith Woodward for prestige. They unveiled a skull with a jaw that seemed perfectly ancient. Scientists wanted an English ancestor, so doubts felt almost rude. Teeth looked human, yet the jaw behaved oddly like an ape. Decades later, flooring tests showed mismatched bones of different ages. The jaw came from an orangutan, with teeth filed and stained. The reveal embarrassed experts, proving bias can shape what we see. 3. The surgeon's photo of Loch Ness was a hoax. One blurry picture launched decades of Nessie merch and monster tours. In 1934, London doctor Robert Kenneth Wilson shared a calm lake shot. He said a long neck rose from Loch Ness near Inverness, Scotland. Newspapers ran it fast, and believers treated it like courtroom evidence. Behind the scenes, big game hunter Marmaduke Wetherell felt publicly mocked. Wetherell's relatives built a tiny model, floating it like a creature. Christian Sperling later admitted the neck was a toy on a submarine. Wilson had simply lent his name, adding respectability to the prank. The photo survived anyway, because legends swim better than facts. 4. The Bermuda Triangle legend built from bad reporting. An imaginary danger zone turned routine accidents into global mystery entertainment. In the 1960s, writer Vincent Gaddis popularized the Bermuda Triangle label. He stitched together disappearances between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Flight 19's 1945 training loss became the centerpiece, minus boring context. Accounts skipped weather, radio confusion, and the search crew's own mistakes. Later, author Charles Berlitz amplified the lore with dramatic language. Researchers rechecked logs and found reports had been misquoted or condensed. Some ships weren't even inside the triangle, just nearby in storms. Once the map existed, every headline started drawing its lines thicker. 5. War of the Worlds radio panic was mostly exaggerated. People still swear the broadcast caused mass panic across America. On October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles aired War of the Worlds. His Mercury Theater show used fake news bulletins and urgent interruptions. Some listeners tuned in late, missing the opening explanation and credits. A few called police, churches, and relatives, asking about Martians. But most Americans were listening to other programs or not listening. Next day, rival papers framed it as nationwide chaos and hysteria. Researchers later studied surveys and found panic numbers were inflated. The real lesson is timing, not aliens, can hijack attention. 6. The Great Moon Hoax claimed cities and bat people. New Yorkers bought extra copies, convinced the moon had living cities. In 1835, a New York paper ran sensational astronomy installments. Writer Richard Adams Locke pointed to famous scientist Sir John Herschel. He claimed Herschel used a massive telescope in South Africa. Readers got details: sapphire temples, forests, and winged bat people. The story even described tiny bison and beaver-like creatures. Other editors questioned it, but the sales surge kept it rolling. Eventually, Locke admitted it was satire aimed at scientific gullibility. Still, the hoax proved imagination travels faster than light. 7. The alien autopsy footage was a 1990s fake. Late-night viewers argued for weeks after the alien autopsy aired. In 1995, producer Ray Santilli claimed he bought film from a cameraman. He said it showed a 1947 Roswell body examined on a table. Skeptics noticed modern equipment details and acting that felt staged. Special effects artists spotted latex edges and repeating prop mistakes. Years later, Santilli said it was a reconstruction, not the original. He insisted some authentic frames existed, but nobody could verify them. The clip became a template for how weird claims go viral. 8. Crop circles began as a prank with wooden planks. Thousands chased aliens, while two guys laughed in the pub. In late 1970s, England, Doug Bauer, and Dave Chorley started experimenting. They used boards, rope, and a simple sighting wire for straight lines. At night near Winchester, they flattened wheat into crisp circles. Morning tourists arrived, measuring patterns and whispering about spacecraft landings. Researchers proposed plasma, vortices, and secret military technology as explanations. In 1991, the duo demonstrated the method, making circles in minutes. Believers argued copycats existed, but the original trick was clear. The real twist is how easy mystery becomes once crowds want it. 9. The face on Mars was just a shadowy mesa. A rocky hill became a human face, then fueled decades of conspiracies. In 1976, the Viking 1 orbiter photographed Mars in the Cydonia region. One frame showed shadows that looked like eyes, a nose, and mouth. People assumed ancient builders, secret ruins, and government cover-ups. Scientists said it was pareidolia, meaning brains see patterns in noise. Later missions returned with sharper cameras and different sun angles. Mars Global Surveyor images revealed a normal mesa with ridges. Even higher resolution photos showed no facial symmetry at all. But the nickname stuck because it sounds cooler than shadow math. 10. The Cardiff giant hoax that became America's tourist sensation. Farmers charged admission, and America lined up to see a giant. In 1869, near Cardiff, New York, workers dug a well and screamed. They uncovered a 10-foot stone man buried on William Newell's land. He hired a Chicago stonecutter, then shipped the figure in a crate. After burying it for a year, Hull arranged the dramatic discovery. Scientists argued fossil, statue, or prank, and crowds cheered every theory. P.T. Barnum tried buying it, then displayed his own copy. In court, a judge basically shrugged, and the hoax kept earning. 11. The Cottingley fairies photos that convinced Arthur Conan Doyle. Two girl snapshots convinced adults that fairies lived in gardens. In 1917, at Cottingley, Yorkshire, cousins Elsie Wright and Frances Griffiths posed. They produced photos showing winged figures dancing beside a small stream. The girls used cardboard cutouts, pins, and careful framing in sunlight. Arthur Conan Doyle heard the story and wanted it to be true. He wrote about it, and believers treated the pictures like sacred proof. Investigator Edward Gardner supplied special cameras, which only boosted confidence. Decades later, the women admitted the fairies were cutouts from illustrations. One photo might have been playful improv, but the spell had worked. 12. Crystal skulls were modern carvings, not ancient relics. Collectors paid huge money for skulls supposedly carved by the Aztecs. In the late 1800s, dealers sold crystal skulls as ancient Mesoamerican relics. One famous example became linked to adventurer F.A. Mitchell Hedges. Stories said it was found in Belize, shining like a supernatural trophy. But tool marks suggested rotary wheels, not hand stonework or sand abrasion. Researchers traced several skulls to European workshops, especially in Germany. Quartz looked ancient, yet the carving style matched modern tastes. Exhibits eventually labeled them as 19th century creations, not pre-Columbian. The mystery wasn't Maya magic, it was the antique market's hunger. 13. The Fiji mermaid fake that P.T. Barnum promoted. Curious crowds bought tickets expecting beauty, then got a dried nightmare. In 1842, P.T. Barnum introduced the Fiji mermaid in New York. It looked like a corpse, with a monkey torso and fishtail. Barnum used a fake doctor named J. Griffin to pitch authenticity. Posters promised a graceful siren, but the exhibit was shock comedy. The specimen likely came from Japanese crafts, made for sailors and traders. Barnum rotated venues, kept it mysterious, and let rumors do marketing. Some viewers felt cheated, yet they still told everyone they saw it. The mermaid proved hype can outperform reality, especially for curiosities. 14. The Kensington runestone myth of Vikings in Minnesota. A carved stone suggested Vikings reached Minnesota long before Columbus. In 1898, Swedish-American farmer Olof Oman found it near Kensington. The runes described a 1,362 expedition and a deadly attack by locals. Supporters pointed to Scandinavian settlement pride and local geography clues. Skeptics noticed modern Swedish words and rune forms used centuries later. The stone had been tangled in tree roots, which sounded dramatic. Experts argued whether Oman carved it himself or someone else did. Over time, most linguists leaned toward a 19th century fabrication. Yet the runestone remains a roadside legend, stubborn as granite. 15. The Vinland map claimed early America and fell apart. One map promised proof Europeans sketched America before Columbus sailed. In the 1950s, the Vinland map appeared from a shadowy book trade. It showed Greenland and a land labeled Vinland, west across the sea. Yale scholars debated it, since the parchment looked convincingly old. A companion manuscript made the package seem even more authentic. Then scientists found annotates in the ink, linked to modern pigments. Supporters argued contamination or rare recipes, keeping the controversy alive. Further tests suggested the ink lines were drawn much later than claimed. The map didn't vanish, because people love shortcuts to big discoveries. 16. The Philadelphia experiment story started as a post-war tall tale. An alleged Navy experiment turned one destroyer into science fiction legend. The story centers on the USS Eldridge, supposedly in Philadelphia in 1943. It claimed sailors watched the ship vanish in a green haze. Some versions say it reappeared in Norfolk, then snapped back instantly. The tale began with strange letters from Carlos Allende to Morris Jessup. Jessup had written about UFOs, so the story found fertile ground. Later authors repackaged it, adding horrific details without solid documents. Navy records and crew accounts never supported teleportation or invisibility claims. Still, the Eldridge myth sails on, powered by unanswered questions. 17. The Bell Witch haunting became America's favorite ghost story. A Tennessee farm became famous because an invisible voice wouldn't stop talking. Around 1817, the Bell family lived near Adams, in Robertson County. John Bell reported knocks, whispers, and animals acting strangely at night. Soon a voice mocked the family, especially daughter Betsy Bell. Neighbors came to listen, and the haunting turned into local theater. Stories later claimed Andrew Jackson visited, and his wagon mysteriously stalled. Years afterward, a printed account spread the legend beyond Tennessee. Whether prank or panic, the Bell Witch became America's chatty ghost icon. 18. The Devil's Footprints of Devon likely had mundane causes. One snowy morning, Devon woke up to tracks that seemed impossible. In February 1855, strange hoof-like prints appeared across southern England. They crossed roofs, walls, haystacks, and even seemed to enter drains. People called them the Devil's Footprints because the pattern looked eerie. Some villagers measured them and found a single line for miles. Local papers printed sketches, and panic spread faster than melting snow. Natural explanations ranged from badgers, mice, and hopping birds in slush. Others blamed a kangaroo escape or a balloon dragging a rope. No one solved it cleanly, which is why the tracks still haunt. 19. The Paul is dead Beatles rumor started as a joke. Thousands searched album covers for clues that Paul McCartney had died. In 1969, chatter and call-ins fueled the Paul is dead rumor. Fans claimed Paul died in a 1966 car crash and was replaced. They pointed to Abbey Road, seeing bare feet as a funeral symbol. People played records backward, hearing phantom messages in guitar and vocals. The band responded with jokes, which only made believers dig harder. Investigators checked schedules and interviews, finding Paul very much alive. Yet the theory spread worldwide because puzzles feel like secret membership. It's conspiracy karaoke. Everyone hears what they already expect. 20. Vikings wearing horned helmets was invented in the 1800s. An entire warrior image was built on horns that Vikings never wore. Real Viking Age helmets found in Scandinavia were practical and hornless. The horned look took off in 19th century romantic paintings and theater. In 1876, designer Carl Emil Doppler dressed Wagner's heroes with horns. The costume stuck because horns instantly read as wild and barbaric. Later cartoons, sports teams, and souvenirs repeated it until it felt ancient. Archaeologists kept explaining, but pop culture kept selling the shortcut. Even museums sometimes displayed horned helmets made long after Vikings. History got a Halloween costume, and the costume won. 21. Napoleon wasn't short. The height myth came from units. Napoleon's tiny tyrant image came from translation, not a tape measure. After his death, records listed him as 5 feet 2 inches. That was in French units, closer to about 5'6". British cartoons marked him beside tall guards, exaggerating him for laughs. He also surrounded himself with elite soldiers, making him look smaller. Visitors at St. Helena described him as average height for the era. Over time, the joke became a fact repeated in classrooms. People now use Napoleonic complex like it's medical truth. But the myth began with paperwork and propaganda doing teamwork. 22. Marie Antoinette never said let them eat cake. One sentence turned Marie Antoinette into the poster child for cruelty. The line appears in Rousseau's writings, years before she was queen. It mentions an unnamed princess suggesting brioche when bread was scarce. By the French Revolution, enemies needed a villain with fancy hair. Pamphlets blamed Marie Antoinette for everything from spending to famine. The quote fit perfectly, so it stuck to her like glue. Yet there's no solid record of her saying it publicly. She had real faults, but that line was likely borrowed propaganda. History loves a catchy insult more than careful context. 23. Columbus didn't prove Earth round. That's a school myth. Columbus didn't beat flat earthers. He argued with math and funding. In 1492, European scholars already knew Earth was a sphere. He pitched Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand on risky ocean numbers. His crews feared running out of food, not falling off an edge. After landfall in the Caribbean, he still believed he reached Asia. Centuries later, Washington Irving wrote a dramatic story of ignorant clerics. Schools repeated it because it makes discovery feel like a victory. The myth survives, even though the round Earth was old news. 24. George Washington didn't have wooden teeth. Washington's smile wasn't wooden. It was a painful engineering project. By his presidency, he had lost most teeth from illness and decay. Dentist John Greenwood built dentures using ivory, metal springs, and screws. Some sets included human teeth bought from donors, including enslaved people. The devices fit poorly, pushing his jaw forward in portraits. He complained about discomfort, and meals became careful, slow work. Rumors turned ivory grain into wood because it sounded simpler. The truth is sadder, showing medicine was brutal even for leaders. So when you see that stiff face, think dental agony, not oak. 25. Einstein didn't fail math. The report card story is wrong. People love the idea Einstein bombed math, then became a genius. As a teen in Germany and Switzerland, he scored highly in math. He was doing calculus around age 15, ahead of many classmates. The myth grew from a report card confusion and grading scale changes. One school used one as best, not one as worst. Later retellings flipped the numbers, and suddenly he looked hopeless. Teachers did criticize his attitude, especially towards strict classroom rules. But math wasn't the problem. Boredom and independence were. So the story comforts us, even though it's basically a clerical glitch. 26. The medieval Iron Maiden was a later museum fake. Visitors shuddered at the Iron Maiden, assuming medieval torture was obsessed. In reality, the famous spiked coffin appeared in museums centuries later. One notorious example was assembled in 19th century Germany for display. Curators combined old metal pieces with new spikes to impress crowds. Records from medieval courts rarely mention anything matching that device. By the time skeptics asked questions, the exhibit had already toured. Replica versions spread to haunted attractions, locking the idea into culture. The horror stayed, even after historians called it a theatrical invention. 27. Medieval chastity belts were mostly Victorian fantasy. Chastity belts became the perfect medieval scandal, but the timeline doesn't fit. Most surviving belts come from 19th century collections and prank shops. Victorians loved shocking stories about the dirty past, safely at distance. Some belts were medical devices, others were jokes for bachelor parties. Tour guides described crusading husbands locking wives away for years. But practical wear would cause infection, sores, and constant maintenance problems. Medieval texts mention chastity as virtue, not as hardware you bolt on. Museums later reclassified many belts as modern fabrications or curios. The myth endured because it flatters us. We're civilized. They were monsters. 28. The Roman vomitorium wasn't a place to vomit. People picture Romans vomiting between courses, but the word meant something else. A vomitorium was an exit passage in a theater, or amphitheater. It described crowds pouring out quickly, like a building spitting people. Centuries later, writers mixed the term with Roman banquet stereotypes. Decadent stories loved the idea of endless feasting without consequences. Archaeologists kept pointing to architecture, not dining rooms, in ancient sites. Even the Colosseum's corridors were built for flow, not nausea breaks. Yet the gross version spread through jokes, trivia, and school whispers. So the real vomitorium was crowd control, not a dinner accessory. 29. The first Thanksgiving turkey feast story was romanticized. America's Thanksgiving image was drawn later, then backdated into 1621. In Plymouth, the English colonists held a harvest celebration with wampanoag. Edward Winslow describes several days of feasting and outdoor shooting contests. Wampanoag leader Massasoit arrived with men and brought deer for meat. They likely ate fowl, corn, shellfish, and whatever was available locally. Turkey might have been present, but it wasn't the starring tradition yet. The familiar menu and buckled hats grew from later art and storytelling. By the 19th century, writers and illustrators standardized the scene. The real event was messy, seasonal, and political, not a perfect postcard. 30. The Princess Caraboo hoax fooled an entire English town. A mysterious princess charmed England, then vanished when her accent cracked. In 1817, a strange young woman appeared near Almondsbury, Gloucestershire. She spoke gibberish, wore exotic clothes, and called herself Princess Caraboo. Local magistrate Samuel Worrell hosted her, believing she was shipwrecked royalty. Doctors and guests questioned her, but she answered with confident gestures. She drew strange symbols and prayed in odd rituals that looked convincing. Soon, a Bristol lodging house keeper recognized her as Mary Baker. Confronted, she admitted the story, and supporters felt foolish and amused. The twist is, she wasn't dangerous, just unbelievably committed to the role. 31. Mary Toft claimed rabbit births and got exposed. London doctors swarmed Surrey because a woman supposedly birthed rabbits. In 1726, Mary Toft from Godalming claimed pieces of animals emerged. Local surgeon John Howard reported it, sending news to eager physicians. Toft endured painful examinations while crowds demanded updates like sports scores. Suspicions rose when fragments looked cut, not naturally formed. Sir Richard Manningham questioned her hard, and the story unraveled quickly. Toft confessed that helpers had inserted parts to fake the births. The hoax exposed how fame and ambition can outrun basic skepticism. 32. The man in the iron mask wasn't a secret twin. A masked prisoner became a legend, then writers filled in the blanks. Under Louis XIV, a detainee was moved between French fortresses for years. His jailer Benin de Saint-Mars guarded him in Pignerol in Paris. Rumors claimed the man was a twin, hidden to protect the throne. In reality, records suggest he wore a cloth mask, not iron. He was kept isolated, and servants were warned never to speak. In 1703, he died in the Bastille and was buried under secrecy. Many historians suspect he was Eustache Dauger, a valet with dangerous knowledge. The mystery grew because silence invites imagination to do the talking. 33. The donation of Constantine was a powerful medieval forgery. A single forged document helped justify papal power over kings and land. Called the donation of Constantine, it claimed Emperor Constantine rewarded the Pope. Medieval leaders cited it when arguing authority, taxes, and territory. But the Latin sounded wrong for the 4th century imperial court. In the 1440s, scholar Lorenzo Valla compared phrases and found anachronisms. He noted words and ideas that only appeared centuries after Constantine. The document likely came from the 8th century during political struggles. Once exposed, it still lingered because institutions hate losing convenient paperwork.